Hello everybody. I've been playing Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together for well over 10 years at this point, and I absolutely love the progress the game has been making since its humble beginning back when it looked like this. But there's a few thoughts over the years that I've had. Ideas and desires for stuff I'd love to see in Don't Starve Together at some point. Heck, some of these already came true. So today we're going to be going over a few features I'd love to see in DST eventually. Now, my taste might be a bit eccentric, so don't be surprised that the first thing I'm going to ask for is turf skins. Don't worry, it's only up from here. Yeah, turf skins. But Ash, turf doesn't need skins since it is in of itself a skin that you just slap onto the floor. Surely they could just add new turfs instead. Why skins? Because, whilst yeah, some turf is functionally just dressing for the ground, some do have uses, like cobblestones with their speed boost, and marsh turf with their merm structure supporting status, and that's about it. Look, I just think it would be cool if we had different styles of wood flooring. Maybe one made out of birch, or some darker wood, or purple wood. And as for marsh turfs, I'd prefer to spice up my marsh bases without having to build things on top of marsh and then replace the turf underneath. Maybe a different colour or textured marsh like tidal marsh from Shipwrecked as a way to spice up your swamps. And whilst we're at it, let's make all of the mosaic turf pieces just one style of turf that includes all of the others as a free skin variant, just to reduce clutter. But where to use all of this new turf? How about my second desire, and more interesting one, more islands? I don't think I'm asking for much when I say I just want something else to find out floating in that briny deep. I think some cool, small-ish islands would be a great thing to stumble across when searching the deep for anything to do. These islands wouldn't have to be chock full of insane new content. They could even literally just be biomes you find on the main landmass but in their own cozy island form. Maybe a little quarry island, or one with beach turf and palm trees separate from the moon key. Maybe a little marsh island with a lone merm on it. Could even use the aforementioned tidal marsh here. Basically, I think it would be cool for small islands as potential base spots and little pockets of resources you can find if you wish to look for it. Maybe even a way to find juicy berry bushes on the elusive Juicy Berry Bush Island. Whilst you're on the topic of world gen changes, it's been so long since we've gotten a new biome, and I think it's time we're overdue for one. I think the last one we got was the Moon Key, but I'm talking about mainland biomes, in which case the last one we got was the Antlion Desert, and that was many years ago. As for what these biomes could be, how about we look to my favourite abandoned stomping grounds, the Gorge. This place was filled with gorgeous biomes, pun not intended. The Merm/Goatmen/Wild Pig villages, the Salt Flats, that really pink forest. I'll take any of them. Our worlds don't need two deciduous forests. Let's trade one of them for the pink forest instead. And as for what these biomes could hold, besides a welcome change in scenery, new types of ingredients, and even a mob or two, we look back at the gorge, let's borrow those pigeons and funny looking crabs too. I'm sure Clay can whip something up to surprise us, something completely out of left field. But whilst we're talking about the gorge, can you guess what my next desire is? More food. In a game called Don't Starve, there's a decent amount of food, all things considered, but by golly could there be more. We look back at the gorge, you can see just how much more food there was. Look at all of these yummy looking dishes and how we were never going to see them again. So that's why I want them back. We simply add a couple of new ingredients like wheat, we can get pizza, pasta, sandwiches, burgers, and let's not forget the base game ingredients that to this day still have zero unique uses, like pomegranates. Ah, but Ash, what use would new food be if they all function the same? Why go out of my way to eat pizza if meatballs do the same trick? Well, it's time for my next and somewhat ambitious desire, deeper food buffs. Currently, food in this game either increases your stats, warms or cools you up, gives you regen, and so on and so forth. Nothing crazy and usually incredibly niche. Of course, Wily has access to his cool unique foods that grant buffs, but besides that, there's a buttload of dishes that cost a lot and offer a little, like barnacles and such. But hear me out. What if different food groups offered their own unique buffs? For example, what if food from the barnacle family gave you increased buffs when sailing? Or food from the fig family increasing your fishing power? Maybe even potato family foods giving you better harvesting rates? We can use little buffs like this to spice up existing underrated food groups, and allow for whole new ones to be added without being meatballs but annoying to get. Of course, while these buffs from his unique food would be significantly stronger than the ones not unique to him, but man, I got a whole idea for an insight tree for him that would work well with this idea. Let me know if you'd want to see that video in the future. But yeah, more food, especially more characteristic food. Also, nerf meatballs there, I said it. So, new food, new biomes, new islands, new floor. What other daft ideas you got knocking about in that brain of yours, Ash? Cave water. Like, replacing the void, or well, most parts of it, in the cave with water. I know a lot of people ain't too keen on the ocean, or the caves for that matter, but I think the caves are long overdue an update. So why not cave water? A pseudo sea surrounding the branches of the cave offers a different way to travel, except around the ruins or atrium. Those should still be surrounded by void. And of course, introducing a whole new horrible selection of deep, dark, light-fearing ocean horrors that swim about in the pitch-black depths. Leviathan creatures that will stalk you and dragging you to the eternal depth. And maybe even cave islands too. The big issue here is that adding water would break void walking, which Clay have gone on to avoid doing for the sake of speedrunners. But that's a topic for another video. Take had an interesting idea of, instead of surrounding the main cave landmass in water, having it so it's a separate biome where instead of land, it's shadow water, or whatever they meant by that fluctuates in activity based on the nightmare cycle. Think of the lily pad biomes in Hamlet, but juiced up. More shadow content and more cave content is a win in my heart. So where do we go from cave water? Why, spider skins, of course! What? Now, not many of you know this, but before I was a Wurt main, I was a Weber main. This was a long time ago, before DST had reworks or even any unique characters. But one of the things I wanted the most for Weber was spider skins. Weird? Yes. But cool? Absolutely. What I had in mind was that the spiders, at least generic ones, would mimic Weber's appearance when tamed or something. I don't think it would be too much work, but I can see why they wouldn't do it. Let me put my amazing Photoshop skills to test to see how it looks. Huh. Well then. Yeah, it would look pretty neat, but when you factor in different spider types and the potential workload it would require to do this for every Weber skin, it's just not worth it. A shame, sadly. Would be a killer mod though. Like that Wormwood Flower Extender mod that honestly should be part of the base game. Look at it, it makes it so the flower trail that Wormwood gets is based on the skin he's currently using. This has gotta be a real feature at some point. But you know what else should be a real feature at some point? That's right, hurricanes. Wait, that sounds kinda bad when I say it like that. But that's my next want. More extreme weather conditions. If you played a lot of Shipwrecked or Hamlet, then you know a lot of the difficulty from those expansions come from the hostile living conditions you're forced to endure to survive. In DST, all you've got is strong temperatures that are circumvented the exact same way but opposite, and heavy rain during spring. I think it would be cooler if there were more. A lot more. What I had in mind would be something akin to hurricanes from Shipwrecked, where after the first year or two, spring or possibly winter would have hostile winds that blow stuff around, followed by intense lightning storms. Something to keep you on your toes and remind you that you are not in charge here. Or maybe how about dry thunderstorms during summer instead of wildfires? You'd still need lightning rods, but you won't need flingamatics. Whilst they could just port these seasonal effects from single player DLCs to DST, it would be awesome to see any kind of new difficult survival event seen later in the years to make things even more spicy. I know moonstorms and cave rifts have effects akin to that, but they're locked behind rift content, and as for the shadows, an entire surface to cave transition. Now this next one might seem completely unnecessary, but it's something we kinda had before, and that's more combat barks. Not like dog barking, but moments where the playable characters speak out depending on what's going on. Currently they only do it for like hound waves, hunger, earthquakes and such, but did you know back in Don't Starve Alone, they would remark when the sun was setting and such? I think having more stuff like this would be very cool. And imagine if they did it with other survivors too, like talking among themselves and adding a whole lot more interaction to them. But my main idea was something like this, survivors barking out when they're having to fight certain enemies. For now we only have specific barks for spiders, rabbits and pigmen. But what about bosses? Our characters have nothing to say when fighting bosses, and it seems a little bit odd. Let me hear Willow screaming her head off as she wants to burn the Deerclops alive, or how Walter enters a state of pure panic when fighting the Bee Queen. And I'm not talking about inspect quotes, I mean autonomous combat shouts. Maybe even lines when characters are fighting their inner demons, and by that I mean shadow monsters. It would add a whole lot more writing, of course, but it would also add a whole lot more depth to these already pretty deep characters. Pivoting from that, as somebody who lives in the swamp a lot, do you know what I want? More spiky trees and bushes. A weird ask, I'm aware, but as you know, these things are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. If you've done any extended playthrough of Wart in the Swamp, or anybody in the desert, you'll know slowly over the years that these things either get chopped up by an errant Merm lumberjack adventure, or up in smoke thanks to wildfires. Wouldn't it be cool if you could regrow these things somehow? I know they're literally useless, but they can be used to make swamp bases look swampy, and desert bases deserty. But also, knowing that eventually certain things in the world could go extinct is a bit somber. So I propose if you plant saplings on marsh turf or desert turf, they'll convert into spiky bushes when summer lands or something. The same can be applied for spiky trees with twiggy trees instead. It's just a little detail I think would add to those biomes, and since it'll be restricted to turf, if you want to avoid it, or maybe even cause it, you can just use different turfs. That was the 16th time I've said turf in this video, by the way. Sure, they could just change it so world regrowth affects things that it doesn't, but that's a whole different can of worms. Remember how back in Solo Don't Starve, everything was in a way renewable since you could just regenerate the world? Say, wouldn't that be interesting in Don't Starve Together as well? Yep, for my next and final wish for this video, add the whole Teleportato stuff to Don't Starve Together. Of course, this would need to be a world gen setting that you turn on before making your world, so endless servers and Clay official ones don't have to worry about somebody changing the entire world when you're offline. The way I could see this being implemented is identical to how it is in Solo Don't Starve, where you have to find the things in their cool set pieces, which I miss so much, maybe even add new ones including the ocean and caves, then take all of the things to the wooden thing, assemble the Teleportato, and then, with everybody on the server present, they can choose to regenerate the world whilst keeping their inventories. Makes everything renewable, and offers a new slate for those who don't want to start over completely from scratch when they're done / don't like their current world. Again, this would have to be an opt-in thing with lots of world settings, like how many people need to be present, and if it can be done when other people aren't on, somehow. But I think it would add an extra layer of depth that Don't Starve had over Don't Starve Together. And maybe even add a setting that randomizes the world gen slightly when traveling to a new world. Who knows where your adventures would take you. And that's a few features that I've been kind of aching to see in Don't Starve Together for a long time. I've got plenty more, way more ambitious ones, but I plan on saving those for another time. Maybe sometime soon. Let me know what features you'd wish to see in Don't Starve Together down in the comments below. Take care everybody and have a lovely day. Bye bye.